Hi folks, welcome to Look with Luke on Tuesday. You know, as I go around the church here, I see people who are in desperate need of what we're going to look at today. We're right in the middle of the Christmas story, and I think the words that we're going to read are so familiar that that phrase about treating them with contempt is highly possible. Certainly, familiarity breeds contempt. But I think also that they are desperately needed, and we really do need to grasp what they mean. Got a bottle of Coke as well. Very, very, very warm. Now, we are in Luke chapter 2, and we're going to be going through verse by verse, this continual as we come to Christmas. And the shepherds, of course, have come, or rather, the angels appeared to the shepherds. The glory of the Lord shines around them. They're terrified. You can go back to last week's if you want to see all of that. But this is the one for today. Verse 10, but the angel said to them, do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. The command is, don't be afraid. Now, sometimes you can just make a command, can't you? Don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. But here's a reason. I'm giving you a reason. You know, I have a fear of flying. I don't like flying. And I do use reason. I use, the plane's flown, the pilot knows what he's doing and all that kind of stuff. Millions of other people are flying today. And you do use reason. But here, the reason is a very interesting reason. Don't be afraid, because I'm bringing you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. I'm not bringing you bad news. I'm bringing you good news. All the people, by the way, who are they? I think that is the people of Israel. But I think it is also through the people of Israel to the rest of the world that God intended Abraham and his people to be a blessing to the whole world. And this good news, this Elizabeth, I sometimes describe myself as an evangelist. That's meant to be a communicator of good news. The church brings the evangel. We're meant to be bringing good news. And I think our world is in absolutely desperate need of good news. For those of you who are on social media, you look at it and you just think, the news just seems to get worse and worse and worse. And just how much this is emphasized. So even in Luke's gospel, there's just a few verses that come to mind. I am Gabriel, chapter 1, verse 19. I stand in the presence of God. I've been sent to speak to you and tell you this good news. Chapter 3, verse 18. With many other words, John exhorted the people and proclaimed the good news to them. Chapter 4 and verse 18. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, says Jesus, because he's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. And verse 43, he said, I must proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God to the other towns also, because that is why I was sent. Chapter 7, verse 22. He replied to the messengers, Jesus, go back and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Chapter 8 and verse 1. After this, Jesus traveled about from one town and village to another, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. Chapter 9, verse 6. So they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and healing people everywhere. Chapter 16, verse 16. I think you're kind of getting the picture though, aren't you? The law and the prophets were proclaimed until John. Since that time, the good news of the kingdom of God is being preached, and everyone is forcing their way into it. Maybe one more. Chapter 20, verse 1. One day, as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple courts and proclaiming the good news. Okay, you get the message. It's good news. The word evangelize was used to bring good news of any kind. Hey, a child has been born. Hey, you've won the lottery. Or hey, your sickness has been cured. You got a new job. You just say, oh, this is all good news. This is evangelizing. I'm telling you this stuff. But we have the greatest news of all. And it's now we say evangelize is now confined to not converting people, but telling people the good news that brings great joy. What greater joy and realization could there be than that God has dealt with our greatest problem, human sin, through his Son? And we'll come on maybe more of that tomorrow. This promise of salvation by grace through faith is for the whole world. Good news, gospel, brings joy, not fear. Joy, I read this, is the inward feeling of happiness and contentment that bursts forth in rejoicing and praise. Joy comes not just to lowly shepherds or isolated parents far from home. Joy comes to all people. Joy, it's just that C.S. Lewis's thing, surprised by joy. Isaiah 9:3, you have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. I think we've forgotten this. I think we've forgotten the good news. I think we've forgotten that it is good news. I think we speak in cliches and memes. I think we don't feel it. I think we don't have that joy. And I think that's why our evangelism is so weak and so pathetic. Because we're not a community of joy. Because we don't see the necessity and the need to share. We look around. Perhaps we do see people as lost. Maybe we don't even see that. Maybe our eyes are shut to that. But when we do see them as lost, we don't see the good news as being for them, but precisely it is. Sometimes we see evangelism as a means of filling our churches or reviving the church or whatever. It's not. Evangelism is just telling the good news of Jesus Christ to everybody. And if you can't do it at Christmas, when can you do it? Just think about that, please. We've got good news. I'm going to finish here and I'm going to go out and I'm going to go and buy myself a coffee and I'm going to sit down and I hope that someone will come and I'll be able to say to them, do you know this? I've got good news for you. Maybe we should all be able to do that. God bless you and see you tomorrow. Bye.